Welcome to the Limelight. It's Thursday, which means it's time for us to highlight new releases, can't miss books, and the authors making waves. We're bringing you the stories you'll want to add to your TBR immediately. So grab a drink and let's dive in. Awesome. So today on this really exciting bonus episode, we are joined by author Rebecca Gould Baeurle, author of the Secrets Trilogy, which includes 6 weeks of Love and Larceny and 12 weeks of Love and Loss, which is coming out on July 28th. Rebecca's novels blend romance, suspense, family drama, and mystery as they follow two sisters navigating love, dangerous secrets, and life-changing choices. So, Rebecca, welcome to, or Becky, I'm going to call you Becky.
Yes, absolutely. Call me Becky.
Welcome to Margs and Manuscripts. We're so excited to chat about your books and the exciting summer you have coming up, your writing journey. We want to hear all of it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. So just to tell you a little bit about the trilogy, 6 weeks of Love and Larceny was my debut novel. It just was released right before Christmas time this past year, and it was well received by readers. And so that inspired me to write a sequel, which is called 12 Weeks of Love and Loss, which, as you just mentioned, will be released on July 28th. So that's just about to come out. And then, of course, there was some downtime waiting for those to be published. And so, of course, I had to write 16 weeks of Love and Lies to close out the trilogy. So,
my goodness.
Yeah.
What a brand that is.
So the trilogy does follow the same characters through these different periods in their life and the changing circumstances that arise along the way.
That's so, did you know, it sounds like you didn't know, like when you were writing that first one, that it was going to become a trilogy, or did you?
No, I didn't. So I wrote it well, first of all, I just started it kind of as a pet project. Like I didn't really know that this was going to, be a full-blown novel. I just kind of started writing it. And then as soon as I got into it a little bit, I was like, ooh, I like this story and I like these people. Like I'm going to keep writing. So, then I kind of fell in love with it and I kept going. My ending to 6 weeks was left a little bit up to the imagination. And so a door was kind of still open. And I thought, oh, well, okay, there's my door to, write a sequel. The ending of 6 weeks is a chapter that's 3 years later. And it just sort of opens up a scene 3 years later that leaves you thinking like, I wonder what's going to happen there. So 12 weeks starts on that same day. So
I love that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's the same scene, just from a different perspective that opens up 12 weeks. And then it follows these characters through the next cycle of, their lives together.
How was that? Like there was time between you writing the end of the first one and starting the second one, like physical time in the writing, but
right,
not in time in the book. So how was that of like literally like jumping like feet first back into it?
You know what? I hate to say this, but I found it to be easy because, I already knew the characters. They were already developed. And so I felt like I knew them and I felt like I knew how they would react in certain circumstances, et cetera. And so 12 weeks built really quickly for me. Like it just kept moving. And 12 weeks has much more of a sort of thriller bent to it than 6 weeks did. It's all held together by a very strong sisterhood between two sisters.
I think the most interesting part about you describing your books is that it's like a Venn diagram from hell of like trying to pinpoint all of the themes and genres of like books these days. It's just incredible of all of the combinations people come up with. It's like a choose your own adventure of book. You want this. We got some for you too. So
yeah. Well, it's actually quite intimidating with the, volume of books that are published every day. I'm glad I didn't actually know that before I started writing this. I probably wouldn't have done it.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that honestly, that's where the genre is going. Like that's where it's moving in this direction of like a lot of authors we've interviewed that have romance coming out this summer. The books are more in depth. They're way more detailed. They're way more researched, and they have kind of like these deeper plots. And so I think that yours incorporating the crime aspect of it and the sisterhood aspect of it is like, yeah, pushing the genre to like where it's heading towards is like more content in the books. Like that's the best way I can describe it. They're not as like straightforward anymore. I have to ask you as a writer, and as a now like my book just came out like last month, but how are you having 2 books come out in like the same 6 or 7 months? Like, are you okay? Are you surviving this? How has it been?
Well, I write surprisingly fast.
Mhm.
First of all, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't really sit down with a well thought out story. I just kind of started with a character and started writing, and then it sort of just kept building in my mind, and I just kept going. So I didn't have a real structure. It just sort of came to me. So I wrote the whole first novel in 2 months. And of course it was a first draft. So it needed
Yeah.
it needed a lot of work after that. But I mean, from the time that I sat down to type the first word until I got to the end of the story was 2 months. And when I tell other writers that, they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like it took me several years, like, but I think it was because, again, it was just the first draft, and I then had to go back and perfect everything. But that's how fast the story came. And then I got stalled in the publishing process because I was intimidated by it. Like, I didn't know anything about the literary world when I got involved with this. So I started, researching, how to get something published. And it was a big scary place, quite honestly. There's just so many, scammers out there, and I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to share it with people, that it might somehow, my intellectual property would be stolen, or that, having no history in the field, I really didn't know how to navigate it. So I got stalled after I wrote 6 weeks, and you know how you never deal with things that you don't really enjoy. So I put that on the back burner and wrote 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So when when I found an editor that I was happy with and trust and everything, the 12-week was already well underway.
Yeah.
So that's how come it's happening so fast.
Yeah,
That's
really
true.
cool.
Like
That's a lot
you
though.
kind
Yeah.
I certainly can relate to the like first draft just coming out of like it just needs to get on the page, and when you get to the end you're like, "Oh, I'm delirious." And like, what do I do now?
Yeah, I totally can understand that. Well, this book is getting really amazing reviews. I've like read all of them. And people love specifically the dynamic between the sisters. And I have to say, like 2.5 years ago, I was at a writers conference, and there was an agent doing a workshop, and people were like, "What do agents want right now? What are they looking for?" And she said, "All people want right now, all agents want, are stories about sisters." And so I
Really?
thought of that when I was researching your books, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the perfect time, because all those books are now going to be coming out. People want to read about sisters." So tell me more about the sister dynamic and where that came from.
How many sisters do you have?
I do
Well,
exactly.
I just have one, but she's my only sibling. So it's just the two of us, and we've always had a strong relationship. So I understand sisterhood, and I appreciate it and love it. And so it's something that is very natural for me to write about. Um, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that sister stories were a big thing right now. So I guess I just kind of lucked out with writing about that. And I like to write strong women because there are a lot of strong women in my life. So I also understand that, and what it looks like, and how it translates into the world, etc. So that all sort of came very natural to me. I didn't really have to think about that too hard.
So it felt like a very fluid dynamic of the like storytelling that you were coming up with.
Yeah, and I mean these characters are fictional. I made them
No,
up, but
they're real. They're real.
That's
um, but but everything that you think of in your mind comes from your own experiences, right? So, I mean, I think these characters have little pieces of a lot of the people that I've known throughout my life or that I, still have in my life, or even other books that I've read or TV shows I've watched or whatever. It's all part of what makes up your imagination. So, um, just pieces of experiences along the way.
Yeah, I love how you can almost reread your work and be like, that's what I experienced that day. That's what they experienced, and I watched them experience it.
that day.
Uh,
Yeah. Writing
that day. Yeah,
I want to
definitely a mood writer.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, we all are. I also want to touch on the audiobook aspect of so you have your audiobook for 6 weeks is coming out. You said by the end of the summer, mid-August. So that's also really exciting for you as well.
Well, the audiobook option came to be just because I know several people who that's the only way they read. They listen. So I thought, wow, that's really sort of, I'm cutting out a whole audience by not having an audio version. And anybody, I get it. People are busy. And if you don't have time to sit down and read, you can plug in your earphones and, cook dinner or do the dishes, or especially if you've got a long commute or anything like that, if you're in the car a lot, you can listen. So I thought it was important to do it. And of course, this is my first, it's not finished yet, and it's my first experience with audio. So I'm not probably the best person to, ask about this because I don't really have anything to compare it to. But it's being read by someone else. It's not being read by me. I do have to say that I find it difficult to read out loud because my brain goes faster than the word. It's just I stumbled. I tried to do it, and literally just reading the first chapter took me like 5 times to get it. And I wrote it. I mean, I should be familiar with the content, but it was harder than you would think.
Yeah.
Have either of you ever done an audiobook?
Kate's working on hers. And you
I'm
read
working
yours.
on yours, but I'm not like my husband has a recording, like he's a sound develop like engineer. Like it's not he's doing it all. Like and reading it is very, very hard. But I also was like, I don't want to play all the characters.
Well, yeah, and then you have to try to change your like I just found it to be something that it's like, okay, I'm not an actress. I don't know how to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, we'll get some other people in here to play the characters. I'll read the narration, but no. So I'm not even the right person to ask either, but I'm curious about other people's experiences because I know that there's a lot of different types of authors, like indie authors, hybrid authors, small print that are exploring how to do audiobooks. And it seems not as straightforward as you think it is.
Right. Well, because and I don't listen to audiobooks, but I've been told that some people prefer them to be completely monotone so that your imagination can fill in the rest. And other people are like, oh my God, no, that's so boring. That would put me to sleep. So it's really, there's a lot of personal preference that comes into it.
Yeah, and you need to strike a, screw it. We should just interview audiobook narrator at this point.
I know we need to get an audiobook narrator for sure because this is like a whole. We could talk for another hour about that experience. Anyway, I want you to pitch. Do you want to pitch 6 weeks? Do you want to pitch 12 weeks?
Well, I can talk a little bit about 6 weeks and then how that leads into 12 weeks, since 12 weeks will be the next released. It all began with 6 weeks, and it is a love story with a criminal twist, so to speak, that stars 2 sisters living in Philadelphia. They're in their early 20s, and they are they've experienced some hardships in their life that has left them basically alone in the world with each other. So that's part of how they're strong sisterhood bond has developed because they rely on and support one another quite a bit throughout the story. So they are together, dealing with life's ups, downs, and in betweens. The older sister, her name is Lauren, and she's a cub reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and she writes a lifestyle column called Philly's Top 10. So she writes about Philly's top 10 brunch spots, Philly's top 10 sandwich spots, like, whatever, Philly's top 10. And the younger sister, Nikki, is a fashion student at Drexel who works 2 jobs in addition to classes. So she's hustling and bustling all the time, just trying to keep it all together. And there is an unexpected romance that develops with Nikki, the younger sister, that leads to some confusion and betrayal and suspense that ultimately leads to danger. And Lauren has an intern named Amanda who is, trying to be a good intern and really show that she can do more than write for this lifestyle column, and brings a investigative piece to Lauren's attention that the two of them go after, and then the two sisters' stories sort of intersect from that juncture, and then all the action begins from there. Yeah.
Very
So then
suspenseful.
that leads into 12 Weeks, which again, as I mentioned earlier, starts 3 years later, with these same characters. And there is an opportunity, the door opens for an opportunity for a second chance at an unforgettable romance that starts out one way and then takes a sort of sudden hard left turn down a darker road that you're not really expecting, that takes you into a sinister space.
These poor sisters.
I know. Well, and then with 16 Weeks of Love and Lies, which again won't be out until next year, it kind of wraps their story up. But I mean, I got to the point that I was like, I have to wrap these girls up, because how much can really happen to these girls? I mean, the poor things,
Soon there's going to be like a documentary about them, like whole thing.
And all 3 novels take place in Philadelphia. So the books have a lot of iconic locations in them. There's a lot of Philly lingo, a lot of Philly cuisine. There's a lot of the Philly fandom, because Philadelphia's a big fan city, that like the whole city is kind of held together by the the unity of being an Eagles fan, or Phillies fan, or whichever team you're rooting for. But it's a big sports town, so there's a lot of that threads through all 3 novels as well, which makes it fun for anybody who's familiar with the city. And the city definitely has a personality of its own, that people can very much relate to. And that, I think, makes the story seem very real, and it makes the characters in the story seem real, because, they fit authentically into the space.
Absolutely. And you want to be authentic to yourself, and you don't want it to feel like you're reaching. So I love that, you wrote what you knew, minus the, hopefully, deception and
Yeah, minus the bad
darkness.
stuff. Yeah, that stuff I made up. But a lot of the story is rooted in my own experiences. Lauren, the older sister in the story, was a graduate of University of Delaware, and that's where I went to school. The girls grew up in a small town in North Jersey. That's where I grew up. The story takes place in Philadelphia. I live outside Philadelphia. My son currently lives in Center City. My first job out of college was in Rittenhouse Square. So I just sort of drew upon things that I knew, which I kind of at first thought was a little bit cheating. Like, I didn't have to research anything. It was stuff I knew. But I was like, yeah, but that's what makes it real. I mean, I know it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's what makes it feel authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like so important, because I think that gives you like this reader base too that you can reach out to and say, like, like people from that area will get excited about reading a book that takes place there, and they might pick it up for that reason, and I like, why not? Like, yeah, of course you would. That totally makes sense. Awesome. And then where can we get it?
So 12 weeks will be released next month. So it's not currently available, but will be shortly. And 12 weeks is available at, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, bookshop.org, or, wherever books are sold. You can order it off my website at RebeccaGouldBaeurle.com. And you can follow me on social at RG Books on Facebook or at Becky Baeurle on Instagram for updates on, release dates and other places to purchase the book.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Limelight. If you would like your book featured in an upcoming Thursday episode, please visit our website, margsandmanuscripts.com. Cheers.